did you start out to write a novel?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you realized you were actually writing a novel, how long did that process take?
I thought I would write a novel.
So that was always the goal?
That was the goal, to write a novel. And I just felt that, I mean, when I started writing, I just felt like I need just a lot of time and space. Just, I'm a bit of an expansive writer. I need the space. So much more space than takes. I mean, I've written one short story that was published, and it took so much time, and they are so difficult. And I have incredible respect for short story writers, just because you need to know your point and you need to make your point, and the story needs to come together, in 10, 15, 20, 25 pages. That's tough. Mm-hmm. I like the luxury of pages while I discover what in fact is happening. So I knew that it would be a novel, and I think I was into it. I wrote the first chapter of this porch falling, and then things were happening from there, and I kept trying to keep this porch scene in there, and it just wouldn't fit. And I kept moving it all around, and it still wouldn't fit. Maybe 6, 8 months in, I realized that this, in fact, could be a novel if I continued to work on it. But I was going to have to lose the porch scene. And I hated to lose the porch scene, because the porch scene is what got me writing in the first place. That when that scene came together, I thought, oh boy, this is the first chapter of the novel. Once I was able to ditch the porch scene, as difficult as it was, I knew that it was going to be a novel, because I was willing to do what it took for it to come together. And I think Faulkner said, "Kill your darlings." And Annie Dillard tells the story of, in the writing life, tells the story of this photographer who every day, this student every day went on a mountaintop, took a lot of pictures, and once a year would bring them to the master photographer, who would then look through the pictures and pull out the ones that didn't work. And then the next year, the student would go out and take, a lot more photographs, and then come back to the master photographer, and again, he pull out the ones that didn't work. And the student always included the ones he had pulled out. And finally, the master photographer says, after 3 or 4 years, is, you keep putting these same photos back in that I've said don't work. Why? And he said, because I had to climb a mountain to get them. So I think that's what was going on with this first chapter. It's like I had climbed a mountain to do this first chapter, and it needed to stay in. But as I've come to discover, that's rude writing. It's saying, I worked so hard. Look how hard I worked. Look how hard I worked for you, reader. This is in there because I worked so hard. It's like buying someone, an expensive gift and leaving the price tag on. Just, it's kind of rude. And so when I realized that I could let go of that scene, as difficult as it was, well, I guess I'm willing to go to any lengths for this book to be, the book that it is trying to be, and I'm willing to cede and just pull back and allow things to happen that need to happen, without rushing in and bombarding the process or being overly directed. So I think, and that was maybe 8, 9 months in, that I thought that this is, if I can stay at it, stick with it, this I think will be a novel. Because I was so excited. And by then I was also in the writing workshop, in Rittenhouse Writers Workshop in Philadelphia, and I was just getting very valuable feedback. And of course I would turn in sometimes my best stuff, just so that they could say how good it was. But then also it was really intensive, and they would really go through the chapters that I sent in, and really, go through it and not hold back. And so that was also, it could be painful and daunting and threatening, but it was also, I think, tremendously helpful, and really also helped to toughen me as a writer, and being able to take criticism, and then also to push through, because they just validated that this is, in fact, I'm working on something valuable here. And it was a good use of my time, because I was feeling is this the best use of my time? I'm putting my job in jeopardy, and my reputation and all of that, even though I don't think people really knew. But that in fact the writing workshop validated that it was I was onto something, and stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. So that was also very necessary. So it took about a year to get to the end of the first draft, and then through the first draft I discovered so many things about the story. So then it meant doing a really muscular revision that took about another year. And I'd say maybe 2.5 years in, I started, got the courage to finally start querying agents. And there was a woman in my writing workshop, in fact, who had had an experience with an agent. Even though the agent hadn't taken her on, she felt comfortable calling her on my behalf. And she said, sure, tell her to send me. So I sent her some initial pages and, just the cover letter. And she said she liked it, and then when I was finished, sent her the rest. So the following year, I sent her the entire manuscript, Tumbling. And she called me, I remember on a Sunday night, to say, oh, I love it, I love it. I'd love to represent you. And I went to meet her, and then, took like good copies, all cleaned up, typos and all that, gone for the most part. And she said, I have someone who I want to see it, and I'm going to send it to her and tell her she can look at it exclusively, but only for a short amount of time. And so I left the manuscripts with her and went home, and then a couple of days later she said, these people at William Morrow want to meet you. They love it. They want to meet you. And I said, oh God, I mean, it's like 3 or 4 days later after her, me giving it to her officially and signing with her. And when can you come? And I said, I started looking at my calendar. Well, and had exhausted my leave. I was like out of leave, and I really couldn't afford to take more leave without pay. And I'd been counseled, Diane, what's going on? You're taking too much leave. And I said, well, she said, they want to do it Friday. Now they want to meet you. And I said, gosh, I'll be there Friday. It's like, what can you do? So I went Thursday. I went that Thursday because they needed to do it before. She wanted to see me before the weekend. The woman was going away, the editor, who was interested. And I met the folks at William Morrow, and they loved it. And I thought I was going to have to defend it. And they just immediately, oh, we love it. So I shifted gears, and they said that they wanted to make an offer, and they would call my agent. They were going to crunch some numbers and call my agent. And I said, okay. And so I just went home and took the train. I got to 30th Street, called my husband, told him I was at 30th Street, and there's a Delilah soul food place kiosk at 30th Street. And I just had a yen for some collard greens. And someone later told me, collard greens mean money. I didn't know, but I just knew that. And and so I was sitting there waiting for my husband, out in the general. And I didn't want to open this thing. I started eating collard greens. It's like, boy. So I just sat there holding the bag with the greens, just smelling the greens. And just, it was very comforting. It reminded me of my grandmother and all that. And so then my husband came and picked me up. And we went home, and what happened? Tell me everything. I said, it went well. They liked it. They're going to call with an offer. I mean, I think they're going to call with an offer. They said they would get back to my agent. I doubt that they'll call to tell her no. And my agent had, I asked her how much did she think it was worth. And she said first novels are tough. And that, she had sold the first novel for $7,500. She said, 15,000 would not be an insult. This was in 1996, and 95 when actually the book came out in 96. She said 15,000 would not be an insult, and that she would suggest I take it. But she did sell a first novel, I think she said a couple of weeks before, for 7,500. That might be the going rate. She said, let's see. I'd rather downplay your expectations. Let's see. And so I left there, and my husband picked me up, and we got home, and then he had a class. He was on his way to class, and I was on my way to pick the children up. So we were like heading out to, I was parked in the back, I was going down through the basement, he was parked in the front, he was going out through the front door, and the phone rang, and we both stopped, and I went back and answered the phone, and it was my agent and saying, Diane, are you sitting down? And I said, yeah, and of course I was standing up, and she said, they made an offer. It's a good offer. And I'm thinking, oh my God. She said 15 would be good. They must be offering 25,000. You know, in '96, that's like, you know, big money. Mm-hmm. She said, $100,000. And I said, and I just started screaming. And my husband was like grabbing the phone saying, you're screaming in her ear. You know, like, and I said, that's $100,000. So he started screaming too. So we were standing in the kitchen jumping up and down. It was incredible because the expectations have been so tamped down. Yeah. For first novels. Number one, for first novels, I was told to expect the litany of rejections. So I was thinking, number one, I'd have to go through many places to first get an agent. That happened first time out. And then to actually get a contract, you know, 5, 6, 7 people would see it before someone finally said, we like this. And then 7,500 she thought was respectable. And so 100,000 was like beyond. And it was just, but that would have been, everything about the process had felt so magical. And so that just really was the culmination. That was the culmination.